Hey everyone, thanks again for coming back to another episode of Built By. This week, really excited. We have Shawn Van Dyke, who is the author of Profit First for Contractors and also the founder slash janitor slash secretary of Built to Build Academy. Thanks so much for joining, Shawn.
Hey, Matt. Great to be here. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really love your story. We were talking a little bit yesterday about kind of your journey in the home improvement industry. And I want to start just with a little intro review, just so the viewers can get an idea of your history, how you got started, and then to build to where you're at now.
Yeah, I found that I kind of stumbled into construction. I didn't come up through the trades. I didn't have like a grandfather that was in the trades or a dad or an uncle that I probably did some little bit of construction, maybe if I'm, thinking about, but mainly I'm a nerd at heart. That's why I went into engineering school, and that's not an offense. I use the word nerd, affectionately. I'm very clear as to what I am. So I went into engineering, got a couple degrees in engineering, civil engineering and structural engineering, and then did that for several years because that's what I thought that I wanted to do. And then as I progressed through my engineering career and got some more experience there, I would end up on construction sites doing inspections and some other things. And I was like, man, this is a lot better than being behind a desk. And then I also realized like I could read a set of plans and I could design something, but man, I didn't know how it actually got built. So I found my way into a construction company, a large commercial construction company. And that was like, I was like a kid in a candy store because my job was a quality control on the project management side of it. And so I was kind of half in the office studying plans and making sure that everything was according to the plans. But then I also had to inspect and watch things going on out in the field. And so it was like the perfect balance of, being in the office and using, I guess, some engineering technical capabilities, and then being out in the field and watching these guys and these gals actually build these structures. And we just post-tension concrete 12-story parking garage and student housing complex. That was one of the first projects that I was on. I mean, it had everything, all sorts of levels of complexity in it. And I was just fascinated by that. But how, a lot of construction goes, then that project, took a couple of years, and then there was a little downturn and so I decided to make a shift and found my way back working for an architecture firm that did a lot of real estate development for a real estate developer. So I worked there and then got into real estate development. And so that put me traveling around the country. And again, it was another one of those 50-50 sort of things for me was I was out in the field, and we're talking large commercial developments like, big box retail with the outlots and the shops and all of that kind of stuff, $10, $20 million type of projects that I was managing. And so that put me out in the field with the contractors. Now they were kind of working for me because I was the owner's rep. And then I was back in the office helping the developers, plan out the project sites and look for new sites. So that was a lot of fun. But my wife was like, hey, this is great. We had probably 2 kids at this time. We have 5 now. And I was on the road 3 or 4 days a week because I was traveling around the country to wherever we were developing projects. And my wife was like, glad you're happy. This isn't going to work out so well. You need to do something else. And so I started my own real estate development construction company. And I did construction management in my local area. I'm here in Knoxville, Tennessee. And that was great. That was about 2005. Then 2008 hit. And banks weren't lending money to developers anymore because there was no more money. And so I made a shift and went into residential construction. And I already had my contractor's license by then, but I was using it as a construction manager on real estate projects. So I started doing the remodeling thing and building homes and then did that for several years and built up a pretty good base of subcontractors. And early on, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but I kind of had this romantic idea about what contracting was. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm, going to be this nerdy engineer that's now going to become a contractor. And I want to wear the tools and I'm going to get out there. And that was a disaster. Well, I mean, it wasn't a total disaster. It was fun at first. But then as I grew my network of subcontractors and trade contractors and worked around other professional construction people, I realized that I was not a carpenter. Like I just didn't have the years of experience, the speed, the production mindset. I didn't have all the tips and the tricks, and I had a lot of tools. I spent a lot of money on tools. And I remember the day I was in this house, and it was a house that we had remodeled, and I didn't install the closet shelving right. Lady loaded up the closet shelving and came crashing down. So I had to go back out there and fix it. And I remember it was small enough that I couldn't call one of my subs out there to do it. I just needed to do it fast. And I was on my knees in this closet downstairs in this basement, patching some drywall and putting in the last little piece of shoe molding, caulking it and painting it. My knees were sore. I had my air compressor out. I had all of my tools out just to do this one little thing. And I was like, I am losing money. I cannot make money if I'm wearing tools. I make money by being in front of a spreadsheet or by being in front of a customer selling work. I've got all the subs. I've got all the people to do that. If I want to be successful with this contracting thing, I just can't wear the tools anymore. I need to run the business. And that was kind of an epiphany moment for me in my construction career. So once I did that, then business really kind of took off from there, expanded even more and got into some higher end stuff. And doing some higher end stuff, I associated with one of my friends who had also started a trim and millwork company. And he was doing really high end trim and millwork stuff. And we had worked together for several years, went to church together. And then he approached me one day. This is probably 4 or 5 years after starting the construction business. And we had lunch, and he said, man, I just got to tell you something. I think I suck at running a business. And because he was my sub, I was like, yeah, you do suck at running a business. Like, your paperwork is horrible. Your invoices are never accurate. Your schedule's a mess. Now, when I get him and his guys on site, it was perfect. I could trust them. I could walk away, and they did a great job. I said, you're great at the field stuff, but yeah, you really suck at the business stuff. And he said, well, what do you think about hiring somebody to run the business? I said, I think for you, that'd be a great idea. You need somebody to run your business so you can focus on what you're good at. And he literally pulled out a manila envelope or a folder with a bunch of papers crammed into it. You know, the kind of stuff you see on contractors' dashboards all the time in their trucks, right? And he said, okay, well, here's the business. Why don't you run it for me? And I said, no, what are you talking about? Like, I just insulted you. I told you you're a horrible business person. But what he is he's a good salesperson. And he said, listen, Shawn, you got this small little team. You're doing okay, but I'm already into the projects that it's going to take you 20 years because, again, he specialized in one thing. So he was able to make that leap earlier. And I still remember this conversation and the light bulb going on for me. And he's like, listen, I got 6 guys. I probably need 12 to 15 guys in the next 6 months. And I can't do it all. I need somebody to run the business. And I like working for you. You're always organized. I want you to run the business. And so I thought, okay, all right, I'll call his bluff. I said, the only way that I'm going to do this is I'm 100% running the business. You be CEO, you own the thing, but I'll be the operations manager and I'll run the business. And he said, and like that, he didn't even hesitate. He just slid that crappy folder across the table, said, here's the business. And I thought he was joking, but that was his entire business stuffed into that folder. And from then we started working together. And then we went from, like I said, 6 to 8 guys to over 20 guys about 18 months later. The company was in debt, not making any money, and we turned it around. And that's when I really realized that all of those things I'd done before, the engineering to the construction management, real estate development, and all of that stuff was kind of training for that moment to take the systems that I had built and I had used. I was just making them up, just figuring out what worked. But to me, it showed that they were scalable, and we were able to turn that company around, and they're still doing really well today. So I was there for about 4 years. And then that, it happened. I walked in and I said, hey, I think I'm done here. I've got this idea. I'm going to go take all of these things that I've used in my business and other businesses, and I'm going to teach them to other contractors and other construction business owners. And it was when you're with somebody and you've gone through that sort of growth period, we're still good friends to this day. It wasn't easy to walk out, but it was the right decision. And that's when I started my coaching and consulting business. And then here we are. That was about 4 years ago now. So
awesome, man. Yeah, it's really interesting. Getting back to when you realized that you were behind the scenes, that was a really interesting story with like shelves falling. It's like a movie. I can picture it now. But when you realized you were better behind the scenes, you mentioned that a lot of it came down to processes, and you're very process oriented by nature with the engineering background. So when you first took that position, You were managing a smaller team, and now you had this manila folder with a bunch of business information. So how did you come up with your process for leading that business? Was it trial and error? Was it asking questions and finding out? I'd love to hear your insights there.
Yeah, really, I'm very numbers driven. So I very early on said, "Hey, we're going to be driven by the data and by the numbers." And that's really the role of anybody that's in operations, I believe, is they've got to be number driven. But when you're number driven, but then you have another partner or another executive or another manager in the business that is not numbers driven, you're always going to butt heads.
Mhm.
And for me, that was new. That was like I didn't consider myself a leader or leadership. That wasn't even in my vocabulary. It was like, no, here's what the numbers say. And the visionary, the owner of the company said, no, let's go and do all of these things. And I said, no, we got to have some data there to support doing all these things, or we're going to end up right back where we were. So for me, I always started with the data. Can we prove it? If we can't prove it, how do we test it to get some data points? And then I learned very quickly you don't need a whole database of information. You just need a couple of points. Are we trending in the right way? And usually that's enough to go to the next point. And so what I drew from that was saying, hey, I'm going to systematize everything I can possibly systematize. And for me in my role, what that came down to is first thing was pricing. Are we charging enough? You can run the numbers. I know how much the guys are getting paid. Hey, we need to hire another 3 guys. We're going to pay them generally this much. Do we have the work? Yes, we've got the work. Now, what are going to be our profits? Oh, we estimated this thing wrong. What we're charging now isn't enough with a larger team or doing larger projects. So we need to adjust that. So started there kind of with the estimating. And then when you send out a bunch of estimates and you learn how to sell those, when you're the most expensive guy in town, you're going to go out of business real quick unless you learn how to sell and realize that price really doesn't matter. It's the value that you're going to be able to deliver to people. Then it came to the people saying, okay, we need another 3 guys, another 6 guys. And there's not enough time to go through an awkward process or reinvent the wheel every time. So let's invent a system for interviewing people, and let's weed out people with as little effort upfront from the managers or executives as possible. So we started working on our hiring system. And when we started putting that system in place, then the people that came through that system, well, they were just better. And so that combined with the right pricing grew the business to the next level. Then we said, okay, now that we've got all of these guys, we got to give them somewhere to go. Like we gave them a job, we stuck them out in the field and gave them some work, but it's like, as they're learning and they're progressing, like if we don't stay ahead of them. So we had to design organizational charts to say, hey, you're come in at this level, spend a year or 2 years based on your experience or your skills or whatever you're learning, then you can move up to here. And it's like, oh, we've got 3 guys that are kind of, jockeying for the spot of lead carpenter. If we only have 1 position available, but we got 3 guys that are qualified for it, that means 2 guys are going to leave, go look for other opportunities. Oh crap. Now we got to dig in even more into the vision and the mission to make sure that really good people stay around and we can utilize them. So there's another system there and that doesn't sound very sexy, like, oh, vision and mission and culture. Everybody uses these as buzzwords, but when you break them down, there's just a system behind everything. And that's what about 2 years into it, the first 2 years, it was absolute chaos. I mean, it was 60, 70 hours a week running all the numbers and doing all that kind of stuff. But then as you get each system in place, you realize, oh, this other thing can be systematized. And when you get it, you test it out, you tweak it, and then you got to throw it out there into the world and let it get screwed up and realize where all your cracks are. And your employees will show you, they will expose where all of the cracks are. You think that you've got this thing planned out. And you said, yep, here's how it works. And you give it to a group of people that don't have all the information that you do, then they break the system, which is a good thing, by the way. But that's part of the system is like, hey, instead of trying to design this thing and saying, yep, here's how it works, and beating people over the head with it, you say, hey, this is probably wrong, but it's as good as we've got right now. Here's the system. Let me know when you break it, or when it breaks. Let's meet and let's talk about it and let's improve it. Let's not throw the whole thing away because there is some thought that goes behind it. So it was really that week after week, month after month was just, what system are we implementing? How have we broken it? How can we improve it? And then we develop managers. And then when you develop people within your company, then more of the tasks come off of your shoulders and you can delegate more, which gives you more time to work on the next level. And you just, you keep going from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to go back to where you were mentioning, you and you have a numbers guy and you have a visionary, and they butt heads. And it's hard, I think, for some leaders out there because it's when you get to the top, it's ego driven. It's no secret. Some of the best leaders are the ones that realize that they aren't leaders, and they bring somebody in. What I was actually interested, working with owners and sales managers and higher ups in companies, do you find that like learning leadership is it easier to learn it, or is it easier to pass the buck to the person who you think is better? It's an interesting dynamic there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that by nature, some people have some qualities that serve you better as a leader. So I'll use myself as an example. Being a systems guy and a data-driven guy and a numbers guy, I have a tendency to go there first. And in certain organizations, when you need some structure, or when you need some systems, and when you need some data, then the person that controls the data is going to be seen as a leader. But the problem with that is when you focus on just those things, then some people that don't have the data, they don't know all the technical stuff, then you become, and you're known as a data-driven person, then they won't approach you with other problems outside of the data. They won't approach you with other issues that are going on that might influence the data. So I found, for me, being a systems guy, that my leadership kind of capped out at the operational level. And it took a team. We had a team meeting and we brought everybody together and we would do these leadership discussions and meetings and trainings. And in that meeting, several of our lead carpenters were like, Shawn, you're awesome when it comes to the numbers. We know that we can depend on you. You're scary good at the numbers. The problem is no one likes working with you. No one likes talking to you because you don't listen to the questions that people have. You're very quick to give an answer. And I realized, I'm like, oh, wow, that's actually so true. So back to the original question, I think that some people naturally, if you're a good listener, if you have the ability to just be empathetic with other people and you happen to be more self-aware, and some people's personalities just tend to do that, those are qualities of a really good leader. For me, I had to learn that. Like, instead of answering a question, I needed to ask more questions, because if somebody asks me a question, I'm going to give them an answer. And I can be right with the data or the information that I'm giving, but I could still be wrong at the same time because of the way that I answered the question. So I believe that everybody is a leader, and doesn't matter if you're the top guy or you're the bottom guy on the totem pole. You have some responsibility to be a leader. Now, you may just be leading yourself. And we would teach our apprentice carpenters that, like, hey, your leadership role here in this company is to be on time and to have a good attitude. That's how you can be a leader in this company. If you're at the top of the organizational chart, well, you got to do all of the leadership things below for everybody else, plus the ones that you're responsible for. So for me, becoming a leader, we would look for leaders that were that were on that path for specific leadership. They had to be humble, they had to be driven, but they also had to be the ability to empathize with others and to listen. And I became very aware of that because it was something that I still constantly struggle with. I'm still a systems guy at heart, but now being a business coach, I mean, that is my job, is to say, okay, here's the problem. I see what the problem is and I know what the solution is, but it doesn't do me any good just to boil you over with all of that information. I've got to get it out. You've got to see the vision. You've got to see the plan as well. And it's much better if you come up with it by me just asking questions.
I want to touch on something you were just talking about earlier, when you are process oriented, but the biggest thing is a foundation. And we were talking a little bit yesterday about, you work with home improvement owners or sales managers that are always looking at the big dollar signs for the marketing, and this is the new sales strategy, and we're going to run with it. But you keep saying, take a step back, look at your foundation. Everything is built there. Why is that such a big point of emphasis for you in coaching, and how have you found that impacts, the home improvement owners and leaders that you talk with?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really cheesy answer. Your business has got to have a solid foundation, just like
Right.
building anything, right? Without a solid foundation, everything's going to crumble. So I mean, it sounds cheesy, but it's so true. And when I work with construction business owners of all shapes and sizes, I used to be like intimidated by the really big companies that I work with that have a lot of sales, high revenue, but when you peel back the layers, like they don't have some of the basics in place. And what I call the basics, and this is what we teach in the academy for anybody that comes in at any level, we teach, first of all, time management. That's the one thing that everyone on planet Earth has in common with any successful person throughout history. We all have the same amount of time in a day. But what you'll find is that very successful people know how to manage and prioritize their time. So and it's self-serving in my coaching programs, because I want you to be able to create time to get the coaching, to do the work of the system, improvement or whatever it is that we're working on. So that's a foundation in our academy. And what I teach is, like, if you don't manage your time, you're never going to succeed. So we kind of start there. Next, we always say that your business, I don't care if it's a $250,000 business or a $50 million business, your business starts with sales. And a lot of construction business owners are selling to the wrong clients at the wrong price. So there's a couple of things there that gets into marketing and other things. But, like, first of all, you got to identify what type of projects and clients are the ones that you make the most money at. And you got to focus on those things and those people and just work for them, which means you got to start saying no to a whole lot of other people. And that's very nerve-wracking for a lot of construction business owners, because they think, like, well, I can't say no, I need the money. And the reason they need the money and the cash flow is because they aren't charging what they should or could be charging their best clients. They haven't done that work. And so that's why I say, after we deal with the time management, your business starts with sales. So we got to make sure that you're selling to the right customers at the right price. Now, at the right price, well, what does that mean? Well, it's different for every business. And that's the third kind of brick or block in that foundation, is the financial side. So that's what we teach them in my book, Profit First for Contractors, saying, okay, now that you know how to manage your time, now you actually have some what I call formal sales training, not just word of mouth and we give you a price and then we go get to work. No, we want to maximize the margins. And there's a way to do that psychologically and selling value instead of price. Once you do that, then you're going to start to grow. And if you don't have a firm grasp on the financials, then you're just going to start chasing that revenue. You will grow, but you'll be growing the top line. And I say, screw the top line. I mean, the top line is important. That's where the business starts. But, like, the bottom line is all that matters. The profit at the end of the day. The only way that you get from that top line revenue to having a substantial number on the bottom of that P&L sheet is through systems. And the only way you're going to, get through the P&L is if you understand how the money works. If we can get those foundational systems in place of time, sales, and cash in place, and you understand that, then you're off to the races. You're going to grow a team. You're going to be attracting new people, not only customers, but people that want to work for a company that's doing that well. But there are business owners out there that this is going to hit home with them. They're like, man, we've been doing great. Our top line revenue is really high, but, like, I've been doing this for 10 years and I've never really had what I should have for all of the time and effort and the risk that people are exposed to. Like, if you're putting a bunch of risk out there, man, there better be a big payoff at the end of that. And so many construction business owners, when we break it all down, I say, okay, great. You got a bunch of sales. Awesome. Let's see how we can improve it. No, we're doing pretty good there. I'm like, so you're saying there's no way we can improve your sales process? Now, some people, they've got a great sales process, but the ones that do, they're usually growing so fast. And like I said, we peel back the layers and they're like, oh, what are you struggling with? And they're like, we're growing too fast. We have too many employees. I had a client that just came on board with us, and he's like, man, we were 5 guys a year ago and we're up to 13, going to be to 16 pretty soon. I'm like, yep, I've been exactly there. We went from 6 guys to 20 guys in 18 months. And I know you got to have a hiring system in place. You got to have a scheduling system in place. You've got to have some marketing in place, because you don't have the time anymore. You've learned how to say no. You don't need to spend time saying no. Get your customers through your marketing to opt out. So you don't have to waste any time with. Now, that doesn't mean we don't want to capture their information, send them some, do some regular good marketing and give them some value. So maybe they become better customers later on. That's not what I'm talking about. But like, you got to get all of these systems in place. Now we get through this growth, what I call the growth phase. And then we get to that leadership phase where you as the business owner have got to realize, and I say this to my clients all the time when they say, hey, what are your problems? And they'll list off their problems. I'm like, awesome. Okay, we can work on those. But first of all, let's deal with the actual problem. Mm-hmm. You, the business owner, you realize all the problems you just listed, whether they're people, customers, lack of systems, you own the business. So they're all your fault. So let's just start there. If we can get really clear on that, we're not going to blame anybody else. It's just a process of taking the business owner and getting them to realize that they are the bottleneck of, they're going to be limited by their growth based on them. So we got to systematically start removing them from the business. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't be the sales manager and the CEO or the operations person and, whatever else, but they can't wear all 17 hats that they've been currently doing, no matter what size the company is. So that's why I always break it down and I keep saying, okay, so what do we want to improve? And the other thing that I hear a lot is like, oh no, we're doing, our numbers are pretty good. I'm like, okay, great. Prove it. Like, get it out of your head. What you think and what you feel doesn't matter. We got to be able to prove it. There's got to be a system in place for it. And so that's kind of where I always go. And that's the struggle for a lot of business owners. They're like, man, I thought I was doing pretty good, but now that when we kind of break it down, I'm not doing as good as I thought I was. And I'm like, that's a eureka moment, man, because now we can fix that thing. Mm-hmm. And we'll just put some systems in place. Yeah, you could probably spend some money. You have to hire some people. You have to interview in a different way. You'll have to, no longer do those projects anymore that you thought were making you money, but they actually just eat up all of your time. And just system by system, we walk through that. And what I want to do in the academy that we teach is just to give the business owner the freedom that they initially, like, when they had this idea, I want to start this business to make some money and probably deliver a better life. I mean, you can wrap all that up with the word freedom. So let's give you that freedom the reason that you started your business in the first place. The only way we're going to do that is get you out of your own way.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. The term ignorance is bliss comes to mind when it comes to like, well, everything looks good, I guess, so it must be good. And I'm happy enough with the status quo. But once you actually get in the weeds and actually start digging through the numbers and, there's always areas to improve. So that's really awesome. Really cool to hear. We're kind of running a little over time, so I want to wrap it up. But we were having a conversation yesterday, and I thought it was a really interesting answer. Everybody in their career, they make a mistake. It could be an F up, it could be something, but it's always like, it's kind of a redefining of that moment. And we were talking yesterday, and you had such an interesting story behind that, moment that you recalled, where it became less about 100% focused on business and it was draining you professionally, and you kind of shifted gears towards family. So what would you say was kind of the turning point for you in your career?
Yeah, so it came at about, 18 months or so after I had become COO of that trim and millwork company. And like I said, I mean, at the beginning, it was just chaos. And I knew what I was getting into. Well, I kind of thought I knew what I was getting into. Meaning I knew I was going to be working a lot. And I used to say this a lot. I was like, with the lack of systems, any kind of system makes the person that brings the system in look like a hero. So I kind of knew I had this honeymoon period of about 18 months where I was just the guy focused on the number. So I was spending a lot of time doing that. And then for the next 2.5 years or 2 years or so, I just kind of kept with that mode. And all right, now that we're kind of over this hurdle, we're profitable, we're growing, we've got these systems in place. Then I was like, here's how I advance and grow this company and grow myself. And within this company is I'm just going to keep plugging away and work more and do more and do more. And so I just kept working more hours. And what happened was I started to get burned out, not only at work, but then because I was so burned out, then I wasn't like present with my family. And like I said, I've got 5 kids, and I've got my wife has some medical issues that were a real struggle for us for a long time, still are. And it was always like, I'll work a little bit harder and then I'll get there and then I can take a break, or then we'll get some more money and relieve some of this medical debt and some of these other things. And so it was just work. And it wasn't getting me anywhere. And then literally one day I just said, that's it. I can't do anymore. I can't physically work any more hours. And I'm kind of wrecking my home life. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift it, and I'm going to focus on my family first. And I'm going to only work 45 hours a week. And as an executive of a construction company, some people out there listening going, man, that is not much time at all. And I'm like, yeah, I know that, but that's what had to change for me. And here's what happened is when I got focused on my family and my personal life first, it meant that I had less time to do my business work. So it gave me clarity on focusing on the things that were important on the business side. And it weeded out a bunch of crap that I didn't need to be wasting my time on the business side doing. People coming to me with questions, and like I said before, I would just answer them and I would go do it. And when I said, I only got so much time, this isn't high on my importance. This isn't what drives the business. Let me give you some information and you go off and do it, because I can't, because I'm clocking out at the end of the day, or I'm going to be home at time for dinner, or, whatever it was. A couple of weeks, it was like 2 weeks after I literally had that thought saying, I'm going to work 45 hours a week, family first. The owner of the company came into my office and was like, man, I just got to ask you, what's been going on over the past couple of weeks? And I thought, oh, here it comes. He's seen my hours drop, and, I had a lot of freedom. I mean, heck, I was running the business or whatever, but he was like, I've seen a big change in the past couple of weeks. And I said, I don't know if you want to hear this or not, but I stopped working for you. After 45 hours a week, I'm done. I'm going home and I'm leaving stuff here at the office. And he was like, that's awesome. Keep doing that, because I've never had so many compliments about your work. The guys are, you're really engaging with the guys, and that I'm getting comments back from it. So he's like, so keep doing that. And I realized that focusing on my family first actually was where my priorities needed to be. It gave me less time to do the work at work. And so I had to get laser focused on just focusing on what was important. And when you focus on important things and getting those, that's what actually grows yourself and grows your business. And then for me, during that was probably another year worth where I kind of had put family first. Then I got out of my own way, and all this confusion and all this burnout that had been going on. I had this idea saying, wait a minute, that was what gave me the opportunity to kind of step back and say, wait a minute, I've been solving these problems and implementing these systems for my business and for this business. And I think it's scalable. I mean, I've seen it, work here. Maybe I can take this out and go do this for multiple businesses. I never would have had the headspace to even think like that if I was just work. This is the way that I get better. When I said, no, work is going to come secondary, life and family is going to be a priority. There's just something in the brain that opened up that creativity and courage or faith or whatever you want to call it to say, wait a minute, I got this idea. Maybe I'll write a book. Maybe I'll write a book and give it away for free. And then I can start teaching, get some email addresses and start marketing to some people. And maybe they'll, eventually someone might send me some money to help them with their construction business. And that's really what I did. And it took off from there. So for me, my big F up was thinking working harder and working more is going to lead to a better life. No, a better life comes from focusing on having a better life and then structuring your work around that and not being burned out and being present for the things that matter. Creativity goes up, engagement goes up, empathy with other people. And and that was 4 years ago, and it's been a crazy ride ever since then.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. And I can see why that's really the number one thing that you coach leaders on is that time management. You get as much done as you can in that allotted time, and you'll start knocking out the higher level items that you need to get done. You get bogged down with too much other stuff. But yeah, man, that's really all the questions I had. Shawn, thank you so much for joining. I think there was a lot of good information here. If followers, want to learn a little bit more about you or about Built to Build Academy, the website's Built to Build.
builttobuildacademy.com, or you can go to ShawnVanDyke.com and it'll link you over to one of the programs in our academy. And what the academy is our kind of mission statement is that we create confident construction business owners through on-demand business training and coaching programs so that you can make more money, stop worrying, and get your life back. That's really what we teach. And people hear that and they're like, oh, it's kind of cheesy, but I'm telling you, that's what the way that we get there is building systems that do each of those things. So yeah, ShawnVanDyke.com. Or you can go directly to ShawnVanDyke.com/apply if you're interested in learning more about the programs. We got a form, just fill it out, and then we'll get in contact with you and get you hooked up with one of the programs in our academy. And we've got on-demand stuff, we've got group coaching, and then we've got stuff where you work one-on-one with me and my team. So we kind of cover all of our bases there.
Very cool, man. Well, again, thanks so much, Shawn, for joining, and have a great rest of the week.
All right, you too. Thanks, Matt.